My handsome friends of the internet, how are you? I hope you're well. I hope you're blessed. Hope your family's blessed. Hope you're making a ton of money. You're not. That could be very, very, very fucking dangerous. Shit. So let's have a look at how we can change that then. Yeah. What we're going to run you through here today is a very powerful concept that will, quite frankly, if you can't implement this and make 20 to 30k in commissions, you are a fool. That is straight up. You are straight fool. So what I like to call is identity shifting. This has saved me a tremendous amount of deals. Not only that, it allowed me to look inside and question my actions, my own decisions, and my own behaviors on a day-to-day basis. The whole idea is that you change the perspective that you look at things. So whenever it comes down to making an investment, making a change, or making a big shift in my life, I have to look at it not from the perspective that I sit in with the current situation that isn't giving me what I want, but the perspective of the person that I want to be. So the actions, the behaviors, the decisions, all those kind of good things that the person of me that I want to become would take compared to where I'm at now. So how do we apply that to sales? Great question, Kurt, as always. So this concept of identity shifting. Right here, as you can see, we have my good friend crying Wojak on the left, as always, crying brokey beliefs, limiting brokey beliefs. Whereas we have the main man Chad on the right, a new way of thinking. So for example, this was me 2 years ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Let's call it 2 years ago. This was me 2 years ago, making £3,000 a month, not even that, £2,700 a month. This is me now, making the money I do now, living the way I do now, and the type of person I am today. But the person that I was here could never be this guy, could never be the guy that I am today. All of the stuff that it takes, the mindset, the beliefs, the actions, the decisions, like I said, they could never align with me being who I am today. So it takes a lot of personal development, a lot of personal growth, and a lot of, I suppose, internal work of questioning what you're doing, what are you not doing that you should be doing, should I say. So how do we put this into our conversations? How do we approach this into a way of selling? How do we help our prospects get out of their current perspective into a new one? So like I mentioned earlier, this is one of the most powerful ways to sell and open up a person's way of thinking, decision making, and action taking. For someone to actually accomplish a certain desire and outcome, they have to embody the decisions and the actions and the behaviors of that person that they want to become. One thing about sales is you should never be the product pusher. If you're the product pusher, fuck you. No, but for real, like, people don't care about a product. People care about change. People care about what they can fulfill. People care about achieving and accomplishing certain things in a life. They don't care about a product. A product is just a vehicle to get them where they are to where they want to go. So if you're one of those guys as a product pusher, you're always going to lose commissions and you're always going to lose deals at the end of the day because people don't care about the product, care about themselves. So we're no longer focusing on the product, but we're actually allowing them to step into a personal transformation for the better. So we want them to move from a negative to positive identity. So in the conversations, you'll typically begin with what limitations they set on themselves so that we can smoothly transition into the aspirational identity that they desire. So let me give you an example of that. You have a prospect that has the limitation of procrastinating. They're lazy. They push things off. They delay. The disease of delay. Now what we need to do is we need to reframe the perspective of, you first need to get context on what it is that they actually want, right? You need to get the outcome of what they truly desire. Then you need to set a perspective of, is that language, is that way of thinking, are those actions going to support where they want to go? No, right? So what are the actions and the decisions and the behaviors of the person they want to do? Let's say they want to achieve financial freedom. What are the actions? What are the decisions? What are the behaviors of the person you are 6 months down the road achieving financial freedom? What's different about that person compared to who you are today? He doesn't procrastinate. Why doesn't he do those things? Because it's not going to get him to where he wants to go. I suppose that's a better idea of how you would leverage that in a conversation. There's more nuances to it than that, quite honestly. Now, for us, I love this analogy. A shark in a fish tank will only grow 8 inches, but in an ocean, it will grow 8 feet. Now, is that true? I don't fucking know, but it makes sense, right? So a shark will never outgrow its environment. The same is true about you. If you hang around small-minded people, you'll be like a shark in a fish tank, filled with mad potential, cut short by its environment. The only difference is the shark had no choice in choosing its environment. You fucking do. You have a choice between who you hang around with, where you hang around, and how you allow their limitations and their behaviors to dictate what you do. You have a choice to do whatever you please. If you're in a situation that's not currently serving you, you are actively choosing that. And I think that's what you have to be aware enough as a rep to understand. The environment that I'm in, the people that I hang around with, the people that I speak to, are they serving my potential? Are they serving where I want to go? Take a look inside and actually question, is it worth me sabotaging my potential for hanging around with people that aren't on the same journey as me? Unlikely. So that's a perfect analogy for you to use. So The same concept applies to shifting your identity as a person. Your beliefs shape your tank. You will only ever outgrow how far you expand your mind and set limitations. So here's a really cool analogy that Kyle So actually broke down for me one time. So if you look at it from the perspective of, let's take a restaurant, right? So a waiter is paid on her actions and the decisions she has to make. So a waiter, for example, she's paid $100 a day. Why? Because the decisions she has to make are on a day-to-day basis. So her actions, her decisions only require her to think so far ahead. So basically on a day-to-day basis. So she's only paid such an amount. Whereas the general manager is paid, let's say, $6,000 per month because his decisions typically are on a week-to-week basis. So he's paid to make decisions weeks ahead. So week-to-week, basically. Now, a CEO is typically, they'll pay themselves a salary of around $3 million per annual because their decisions on a yearly or quarterly basis, he's fucking paid well enough to plan so much further ahead. So all of that comes from the way that you think, the actions that you take, and how far ahead you think. That's what dictates the kind of success that you actually have. Because if you're only thinking on a day-to-day basis, that's all you're ever going to get paid. Take me, for example. I have to think on a week-to-week basis, a quarterly basis, and a yearly basis to make sure that I'm in line with my goals, the kind of numbers and the finances that I want to achieve. So let's take the sales space, the sales industry for this example. So a closer is paid on a day-to-day basis because all he has to do is take sales calls and typically follow up with leads that didn't close previously. So he's paid on a day-to-day basis, paid on his commissions. Whereas let's take a sales manager, for example. He's paid on admin, making sure admin's in check, making sure sales reps are organized, making sure the software is set up, making sure that she has a pipeline of sales reps, making sure sales reps are actually doing the job, a full line of management. So he's paid a little bit more than sales reps typically are. Now, with a CEO, a business owner, for example, the owner of the business, he's paid to make sure content's in check. He has to do content. He has to do staffing. He has to do salaries. He has to do building an offer, keeping the offer in check, marketing, ads. I need to make sure salaries are paid. I need to organize finances. I need to do kind of all this kind of good stuff, right? So I need to make sure that my decision making is on a monthly basis. I need to make sure that my decision making is on a week-to-week basis, a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, and a yearly basis. So I get paid more, right? That's how it works. So the idea behind that concept is your way of thinking is going to determine how far you actually go. If you only settle for just being a closer, then that's all you'll ever be paid. When you look at yourself as a closer right now, then you have to question, okay, I can make 20 grand a month here, right? But I only have to make decisions on a day-to-day basis, my sales calls. Whereas if you want to think further ahead, if you want to think, okay, the guy that I am making 100 grand a month, what is different about him? What changes? So then you start looking at what it takes to become a business owner, but you have to step into that identity before the beliefs, the actions, and decisions. So that's how that all aligns together. Now, how do we actually use this in our conversations? So what we have here is identity-based questions examples. There's so many varieties that you can go through this. There's so many different ways you can approach into a conversation with this. But this stuff right here, this stuff is really powerful. You usually have the set of frame in the discovery so that it lands easier on the objections. But this here alone saves me so many fucking deals in discovery and objections. So let's take this one for example. So the version of you at 50k a month, what beliefs, what decisions, what actions are different in them compared to who you are today? He runs with it. He takes action. He doesn't let fear hold him back. When would be the most appropriate time for you to step into that version? Today. Do you believe that? Or is it just because it fits the conversation? No, I actually mean it. So let me break that down for you. So here we're getting him into a different way of thinking. So the version of you that is achieving financial freedom, the version of you that is at £170 compared to being at 250, what beliefs, what decisions and what actions are different than them compared to who you are now? So what they'll do there is they'll sell themselves on what's different about that person that they want to become compared to who they are today. So there they release all the limitations of the things that they're not doing now that's causing them to put roadblocks in between where we want to go. The reason I do this is because it gets them to set a tone of like, when do they actually want to achieve that? When do you want to accomplish that person? When do they want to become that person? When would be the most appropriate time for you to step into that version? Usually people will say ASAP, today, now. So most of the time I just sit in silence and I'm just like, and they'll interject and be like, yesterday, 5 years ago. That's what I needed. That's what I needed to hear. So usually just to get concrete on that, because most people will tell you, now. But is that just because they've said it and it kind of fits the conversation at this point? That's what I want to make sure of. I want to make sure, do they actually believe that? Do you believe that? Or is it just because it fits this conversation, you think it sounds nice? No, I actually mean it. Okay, why do you mean it now though? Because up until now, the person that I've been hasn't got me the result. And if I don't change, then nothing will ever change, right? So this one is really fucking powerful. So usually I'll leverage, when I say this, This is when you need to have conversation flexibility, right? Because you'll usually leverage the language and their patterns and their current situation. You'll leverage that into a conversation to fit this smoothly. So which version of you is in a better position? The version of you that understands the moment is uncomfortable, is fearful, but despite the fear, he takes the courage and moves forward so that he can actually accomplish 20 grand a month to support him and his family? Or the version of you that continues to delay this and pushes it off because it's easier to do that than it is to actually face the reality that it's not actually serving you? So what do we need to let go of so that we can actually accomplish the outcome? What does that mean? So what do we need to let go of? Earlier in the conversation, I get a very strong limitation to why they're not where they want to be. So we want them to picture that limitation as like a villain, right? What do we need to let go so that we can actually accomplish that? The limitation that holds them back. When do you want to let go of that? I get time frames on everything. Everything here, you can see time frames, right? Because I want them to start playing actions of today in their mind. I already want them to start planting ideas that they're taking actions today. Because if I continuously plant that seed over and over and over and over and again, do you know what's going to happen at the end of the call? That seed will be so fucking rooted into the bottom of their core that they will have no other way out to realize that they're now in the reality of making a fucking decision. That's how powerful it is. So here, to be able to understand this and leverage it, like, you have to understand the difference between negative self-talk and positive self-talk. So let's take this one, for example. If somebody is using bad language or language that isn't actually supporting where they want to go, you need to help them see it from a different perspective. So let's take, for example, I don't know where I'm going to find the money. I don't think I can find the money. Well, is it more important for you to sell yourself short on what you can't do? Or look further down the road when you are achieving $30,000 a month and look at what we can do today to put you there? So we're taking them from negative self-talk to now positive self-talk, from a lack of resources state to now a resourceful state. This is why this is so powerful, because you're just reframing their whole way of thinking. So how do we use this in objections? People tend to fall back into their old ways, especially when money is involved, right? The whole reason we shift identities is because the easiest thing for a human to do is fall back into old ways, old habits, and poor decisions, right? Because if they weren't doing that, they wouldn't be on your call. It is funny though, but I love it when A-types jump on and they try and steamroll a conversation. And then as soon as money's involved, oh wait, I'm not the guy I was 10 minutes ago. I'm not actually that guy. My true colors have all of a sudden appeared in the conversation. You motherfucker. You'll have noticed you'll get this objection quite a lot. It's not the way I make decisions. Clearly, motherfucker. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on my call. But which perspective are they actually using in that scenario? The one that's gotten them to where they are now, where they're dissatisfied, disappointed, and not fulfilled in terms of where they want to go? Or the one that's going to get them to where they want to go? Because if it's not the way you've made decisions up until this point and you're dissatisfied in what you've accomplished, in what sense does it make sense to keep using that same process? So which perspective are they using when they give you that objection? That's what you've got to figure out. Which one are they more committed to moving forward? So now it's time to break their ways so that they can accomplish what they actually want. So let's take this in a fear perspective, right? A fear objection. I'm not sure I can do it. Okay, well, let's look at the version of you 5 months from now that is making 20 grand a month. Does he allow fear to control and dictate his decisions for the next year and stay in the same position? Or does he take control of the fear, use it as fuel, and make the hard decision despite how uncomfortable it feels in the moment so he can actually accomplish what he wants to provide for those most important to him? Why does he do those things? Why are we asking why? Because it's easy for me when I talk at people and ask them a question and they fall into that question, they give me the right answer. I always want their context on why. Why do they believe that now, though? Because a moment ago they didn't. Why did they all of a sudden believe it? So I can actually get that buy-in, their emotional buy-in, a little bit more to that conversation. This is a prime example of my good friend Thomas using it. So this is something in particular that I actually teach inside of my program. Now, I'm not going to share this video with you because you don't deserve it, right? This was a one-call close on a 24.8k PIF. For a guy, for context, for a guy that was making well over $750,000 a year. A lot of you guys seem to think that people at that kind of level don't need limitation, don't need identity shifting. Well, more fool you, right? So that's what I teach in my particular community. And Thomas was able to implement it and get a one-call close on a 25k PIF for a guy that was making close to $1 million a year, where most of you guys would shit yourself. So money objection. Right? I won't be able to afford it. I can't afford it. You need to give them a different perspective around money before even moving into the shift. So, for example, my belief around money is an unlimited resource that can be made anywhere. Money can be printed out of thin air. The problem is not their lack of, but their willingness to be resourceful to the situation. Whereas in my mind, time, on the other hand, is limited. We only have so much time available. So is it better to delay and do nothing, or is it better to look at potential levers that I can pull to move forward? So that's the way I always look at a situation. Is it more important for me to focus on what I don't have or what I can do to put myself in a better position? So in this scenario, is it more important to focus on the lack of resources or your willingness to become resourceful so that you can actually accomplish 10 grand a month? So what I want them to realize is a very binary, like at this point in your life from where you want to go, is it more important to focus on what you don't have or what you're capable of to become resourceful to the situation so that we can put you in a better position? Getting resourceful. So which version of you is in a more empowered position? So we want them to feel empowered in this scenario. The version of you that sells yourself short on what you can't do and lets it dictate his situation, or the version of you that has more certainty in themselves and is open to looking at potential ways to move this forward so you can actually achieve $10,000 a month. So that's a money objection. Now we have a timing objection. Typically, you'll get this in a B2B scenario. I don't have time for this right now. Okay, which version of you solves the problem sooner? The one who prioritized solving this reoccurring problem once and for all, or the one who continues to put out the same fires every single month because there was never a perfect time to address the root cause? This would work excellent in B2B. We don't have time to do this. Partner. Ooh, this is a dangerous one. Yes. Fucking love this. People seem to have these strange word tracks around objections. Like, this only works if you actually do a good discovery, just so you're well fucking aware. So you better do a good discovery, because you're not doing a good discovery, then you're fucking up the call. Remember that. So, partner, approval from a third party objection. I need to get approval. I'm seeking approval in this. I need to get someone else's opinion. I need to speak to my partner. Side note, my personal belief around this objection: the position that someone is in is a complete construct of a decision, of every decision that they have made in their life, right? If you met your partner when you were, I don't know, 15, 16, 18, 20, 25, whatever, right? Every decision that you've made for your career, where you're at, your situation, it's all because of you. Your partner can't make those daily decisions for you, what dictate your life. So in some way, somehow, you still have to take ownership of a decision from coming onto my call alone. If it was so important that you made this decision together, guess where you'd both be? On my fucking call together like this, like little retards. Well, you're not. You're here alone. So guess what you got to do? You got to face the consequences of coming to the call alone and face the reality that you got to make a decision and own up to that decision. Sorry, just had to get out there. I want them to own up to the change in their own way. So that can, for me, I don't care. I don't care about a PIF. I just care about you making a change. That can be a down payment or it can be a PIF. I don't care, but at least take control of your own decision. So what we want to do is we want to set identities that they can fall into. So if we take a male in this example, in the front end of the call, you have to set labels or identities for them to fall into. So let's just take a male. Typically, if he's a dad, if he's a husband, whatever it may be, you want to label him as more of like a leader in this position, either a leader or a provider. So which version of you strikes you more of a leader in this situation or position? The version of you that seeks that last bit of certainty for a decision that feels uncomfortable because it's been delayed for such a long time? Or the version of you that becomes decisive and courageous for his family to lead them to a life that you know they deserve, despite the emotions getting the better of him? Which version of you is in a better position? The version of me that becomes decisive. Why would you say that? Because I need to step up. I've been pushing this off for long enough and my family deserve better. When did they deserve better though? Because you could just keep pushing this off and continue to do nothing. Why? What would be any different today that you would want to step up and become courageous enough to lead them in the right way? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This is exactly how I handle a partner objection. I'm not even bullshitting you. Like, I can show you a call with this. A female. This has to be approached very fucking carefully because you know what women are like. Some of them are like Karens and they stand in their own way and they complain and get back up and all this kind of stuff. So you have to approach this very carefully. But with balls, with full level confidence, that's how it has to be taken, right? So with women, what you want is you want empowerment. You want them to feel empowered. You want them to feel like they're leading. So if we look at the life you want to live, Karen, and what you want to accomplish deep down, which version of you is in a more empowered position? The version of you that understands fear can sometimes get in the way, and it can put obstacles in between you, her, but takes control regardless of the situation. So she can actually accomplish £110, £150 so she can run around with kids and actually be super mum that she wants to become. Or the version of her that allows it to take over and sabotage what we both know you can accomplish. So that's how we do it, ladies and gents. That's how we shift identities. That's how we get people from where they are to where they want to be and help them step into the shoes of the person they want to become. There's so many different ways you can leverage that. I show all my guys the nuances of getting the deep into the fucking weeds of this kind of stuff so that they can actually accomplish more PIFs, they can actually accomplish more commissions. If you feel like this helped, comment, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll shoot this document over. It'll include the video as well. I didn't want to put it public on YouTube for the main man. Shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll send you over this document, and only message me if you actually find it useful. But other than that, peace out, ladies and gents. Be good to see you guys implement this, make some changes, collect some commissions, but there we fucking go.